LSU adds an elite edge rusher to its already elite transfer portal class. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making this your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts. Of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And thank you for watching every weekday on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. We've got a lot to talk about today. Coming to you from Houston, I was here for the Bear Bryant Awards. Did my radio show here Wednesday. Pretty incredible day. First time here at the Bear Bryant Awards. And Kurt Cignetti was here. Had a chance to talk to Joe McGuire from Texas Tech, Clark Lee from Vanderbilt, Coach Franklin from Virginia, Coach Mack from Kennesaw State. Really a pretty incredible day. Bob Chesney, who just left James Madison for UCLA. Pretty incredible day. And a ton of access and candor from all these coaches. But anyway, we'll get to that maybe another episode. I'm going to tell you what I thought was really intriguing here. But what was fascinating about this day is that we were hoping we'd hear word from two elite level prospects that LSU was targeting the transfer portal. LSU got good news from one of them, and batting 500 ain't so bad. If you missed the news, LSU on Wednesday did in fact land a signature from Princewill Umanmielen, the elite edge rusher from Ole Miss. We've, if you're an everydayer, shout out. We've gone through this quite a bit on Umanmielen and his backstory, which I want to get into. But at this point, I want to talk about what this means for LSU on the defense. So I'll get to that in just a second. The very quick catch up for those who aren't familiar, if you're just finding the show, and thank you for that. Umanmielen, his brother, you might remember, Princewill Umanmielen, was a Florida transfer, went to Ole Miss. So Princewill Umanmielen started at Nebraska, transferred to Ole Miss, led the team this past season with 9 sacks. You're talking about a guy that played in 23 games at Nebraska over 2 seasons, was a productive player there, transfers to Ole Miss this season, 2025, as a junior, plays in all 15 games, only started once, but even despite that, finished with 44 tackles, led the team with 9 sacks, 15 quarterback hurries. He was uber productive throughout the course of this season. And I think maybe the most important part there, when I talk about those 9 sacks and the 15 quarterback hurries, we talk about what that means for an LSU defense that under Blake Baker a year ago was so mightily productive in their ability to rush the passer. And that really waned this season in 2025 for that defense, despite the fact that they returned a guy like Harold Perkins off of injury. They added Jack Pyburn. They added Jamari Butler. They added Patrick Payton. The thought was this was going to be a team in 2025 that, with the outstanding talent they recruited via the portal, with who they returned, with Blake Baker's defense, that they were going to be one of the elite level teams at rushing the passer, and it just didn't manifest. LSU finished this season in 2025 69th, tied for 69th in America in sacks per game at 1.9. For context, a year ago, they were at 2.8. They averaged almost a year ago, without all that they invested in the transfer portal with Pyburn and Butler and Payton, and with Harold Perkins injured for the bulk of the season. They averaged nearly a full sack per game more than they did in 2025. So, by the way, just if you look at the team leaders, Harold Perkins led LSU with 4 sacks. Next was West Weeks at 2.5. Damian Shanklin at 2. DJ Pickett at 2. Dylan Carpenter, Bernard Gooden, Jamari Butler, Jack Pyburn all at 2. Princewill Umanmielen had 9 at Ole Miss, more than double Harold Perkins total in 2025. And again, Umanmielen only started one game. He was a rotational player. So when you look at what, with Umanmielen, what that means for LSU's defense, it is obviously massive because you can certainly scheme pressure. You can have corner blitzes and safety blitzes and just blitzes in general, which is scheming pressure. But ideally, to protect the back end, you have elite level front seven players that can win their matchups and pressure the quarterback. That's Princewill Umanmielen. So not only do you add this elite level edge rusher who is proven in the SEC, having had 9 sacks this year in the Southeastern Conference at Ole Miss, you also weaken Ole Miss, a team you're going to play and a team that's in your conference. So you take away their best edge rusher and add him to your team. Yeah, that's a gigantic benefit. So when you look at LSU's edge rusher position here for 2026, you're going to return Gabe Relaford. Remember, Relaford is coming off the torn ACL, and that's unfortunate. And when he's been healthy, he's been a good player. He was part of that very deep rotation on the edge this year in 2025. But Relaford's coming off of injury. And then you have guys like Carpenter, Kalaj Cobbins, Dame Shanklin, guys that are young, talented, haven't produced a bunch, haven't played a bunch, by and large, because they've been waiting their turn. But you got those 3 young players plus Relaford, that's 4 that you return. And then when you look at what LSU has done in the portal now, very clearly you add a guy via this portal class like Princewill Umanmielen. He's a starter. That's a guy, again, who didn't start this season for Ole Miss and was part of their rotational package. But you're still talking about a guy who was super productive. So Princewill Umanmielen, and then Jordan Ross as well from Tennessee, the former 5-star, another guy that by and large was a rotational player for Tennessee. So the productivity wasn't necessarily there for Jordan Ross week in and week out, but when he was on the field, he was very good. As for Umanmielen, he played a total of 489 snaps this year. Remember, the leading LSU defenders were over 700 snaps. So you're talking about an opportunity where you give Umanmielen over 600-700 snaps in 2026. It's plausible to think that productivity could increase even more. So again, you've got Relaford, Carpenter, Cobbins, Shanklin returning. It's 4 returning. You've added now Umanmielen at one edge, Jordan Ross, former 5-star from Tennessee. You've also added a couple of guys who might be sort of project-type players. Achilles Woods is an FCS player that you've added. And then remember Jaylen Brown as well. Jaylen Brown's a guy that your new edge coach, Sterling Lucas, had with him at South Carolina, liked him, brought him to Baton Rouge. So now what we're talking about is numbers, is depth. Umanmielen, Jordan Ross likely as your starters, maybe Gabe Relaford in that mix as well, 3. And now you're talking about, all the different depth we've talked about with Carpenter and Cobbins and Shanklin and Woods and Brown. You have numbers there. It's what this team needed to add with all of the defections that you had via the transfer portal. And when you look at the edge rusher position, that wasn't necessarily one that you lost a ton via the transfer portal, but that's one you lost CJ Jackson to Vanderbilt. But it's one of those spots where, by and large, the biggest defections were to the draft. What you did a year ago in the transfer portal was out of a 1-year mercenaries. You talked about Pyburn and Butler and Payton. You were talking about 1-year guys you knew you were adding for 1 year to try to improve your defense, to make a run at a championship under Brian Kelly. And you knew all those guys were gone and you were going to have to replace them. Well, replace them you did, and with none bigger than Princewill Umanmielen. So, by the way, there was a little bit of a complicating factor with Umanmielen because of the timing. Let me tell you what I know about that, and I'll get you caught up on Jordan Seaton as well. We'll do that as we continue. It is Locked on LSU. It's your team every day. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with local TurboTax experts in person, or you can connect online. And they handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms, and they work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, you can go about your day, and you get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if TurboTax didn't file your taxes last year. Just file by February the 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. That's turbotax.com/local. So Princewill Umanmielen jumps aboard, and I know this was a big conundrum because of how all of this transpired. So Umanmielen, if you're not familiar, he announced last week that he was going to go in the transfer portal, and Ole Miss decided they were going to hold him to his contract because he signed his revenue share deal with Ole Miss, which meant that he was obligated. However, these deals do have buyout clauses. So as I understand it, Umanmielen's buyout at Ole Miss was around the $500,000 mark. Actually, might have been closer to $600,000. So what that means is LSU, out of their rev share pot, had to pay Ole Miss roughly $600,000 to let Umanmielen out of his contract. And then on top of that, as I understand, his rev share number or his contract with LSU is going to be a 7-figure amount. So you're talking about LSU paying a very steep price financially after already an epic portal haul to get Umanmielen away from Ole Miss. Was it worth it? Again, we have these conversations. There's two components. It's the financial component, the on-field. On-field makes a ton of sense. 9 sacks in the SEC a year ago led Ole Miss. You weaken Ole Miss, you bolster your pass rush. Boom, done. Absolutely no doubt. Is it worth it financially? That's a question that really is answered by asking a question, do you have the money? And if you have the money, then of course it is. Ain't my money. I'm not writing a check. I'm not spending it. So as long as it doesn't affect your ability to build your roster otherwise, okay. It's not like in the NFL where you have a salary cap and you have to allocate your funds appropriately. If you can build a roster and it's not going to affect your ability at other positions, then okay. The other interesting component, a lot of you have asked because we've talked about it plenty here, is the admissions part of it. Now, I got a text at quite literally, I'll read you the timestamp. It was, this was on Wednesday at 5:54 a.m. I got a text. And the text alerted me because, remember, Princewill Umanmielen filed to enter the transfer portal late last week. Ole Miss held up submitting his paperwork. You had the weekend, the holiday on Monday. The last day to register for classes at LSU was Tuesday. So once Tuesday came and went, you could still add players via the portal, but that meant they weren't enrolled for the spring semester, so they wouldn't be available for spring football. I got this text at 5:54 a.m. on Wednesday. And it was someone, let's say, with intimate knowledge of how this situation would work. And this person told me the admissions office might grant an exception if Princewill Umanmielen clears the portal today. Again, we learned in the early morning hours on Wednesday that Umanmielen's name had appeared in the portal officially, and then late morning he signed with LSU. So, and I know there's going to be the skeptics that look at that and go, man, get real. You know this guy. LSU was going to admit him. They're going to let him in. I think it's important to remind you how many people in academia despise the fact that athletes play in many instances by a different set of rules. It's not the athletic director or the head football coach or the recruiting coordinator making these determinations about enrollment to the university academically. These are people in the admissions office that have to make these calls. Now, obviously, you have what we've talked about, which is great alignment with LSU right now. The head coach, the athletic director, the university president, the board of supervisors, the governor. And when you have that alignment, you can make things work in your favor if you need it to. I'd also submit, as an LSU alum, someone who has a degree from that university, who would very much like for that degree to carry a lot of weight, I could tell you definitively that I'm okay with this because the arbitrary date that was implemented for Tuesday is, think of it this way. Is there really a dramatic difference in a young person's ability to learn from Tuesday at 5 p.m. and Wednesday at 7 a.m.? Not really. I understand you have to have deadlines, but in some instances, exceptions make sense whenever you understand the context. And the context here is that Ole Miss was trying to keep Princewill Umanmielen, so they try to run LSU up against the shot clock and try to run out the opportunity for Umanmielen to enroll at LSU in the spring semester. If he wasn't enrolled in school, then he can't participate in spring practice. Like, you have to be enrolled in campus, in the school. And so LSU clearly bent here a bit, just by a few hours, to allow Princewill Umanmielen the opportunity to be a part of this signing class and to be part of LSU now as we look ahead to spring. So the other big question now after Umanmielen was, okay, what's the latest on Jordan Seaton? And what I can tell you is I did have conversations with multiple people deeply connected to the LSU football program on different levels, and had another conversation on Wednesday with Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry about this. So I'll tell you what I can about the Jordan Seaton situation as we continue to wrap up. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. So this may surprise you, but the Jordan Seaton situation is not over. I had an opportunity on Wednesday. So the quick, very, very quick abbreviated Cliffs Notes catch up. Remember, Seaton visits number one offensive tackle, Mississippi State on Friday, Miami Saturday, Baton Rouge on Sunday. Monday, he was supposed to go to Eugene, Oregon, never makes that trip. Spends the full day in Baton Rouge on Monday, ends up going to the governor's mansion, like we've discussed. Tuesday morning, flies to Atlanta. Never goes to Eugene. Flies to Atlanta. His uncle posts a few pins on his Instagram story in Atlanta and Buckhead. On Tuesday night, Lane Kiffin flies on the MMR plane, one of the MMR planes, they have three, to Atlanta, as I was told, to get FaceTime and another swing with Jordan Seaton. Shout out to Jordan Kitchens, who works with us at Guarantee Media, with Jordan Seaton. And but then Dan Lanning also made the trip to Atlanta. Now, I am sitting here in Houston for the Bear Bryant Awards, and Dan Lanning was supposed to be here. So here on Wednesday. So it's plausible that Lanning was already in Houston and just made the quick hop to Atlanta to see Seaton before coming back here to Houston on for Wednesday. So the quick catch up with Seaton is this. As of now, as we record this, Seaton has still not committed to or signed with the program. There was a heavy feeling throughout Monday after the visit Sunday and then extended into Monday, and Seaton not going to Eugene, that LSU was going to land Jordan Seaton. That was a heavy feeling. On Wednesday, I was told LSU's hopes of landing Seaton were, quote, dwindling. Doesn't mean they're over. I'll remind you, LSU's odds of landing Sam Leavitt were dwindling after he left campus. And Lane Kiffin made a very bold and aggressive strategic move by getting on a plane, flying to Knoxville, Tennessee, and meeting Sam Leavitt before he went to his Miami visit. And ultimately, he got Sam Leavitt. So as of Wednesday night, what I was told about Jordan Seaton and that situation is that it is not all the way over. That this staff is still working hard and they are still talking with Jordan Seaton. So the lines of communication are not siphoned off. What I think is important to note is, Seaton left LSU without committing or signing. There's also the thing I just discussed, which was the time frame to enroll in the spring semester. The big hang-up with Jordan Seaton, as it's been explained to me, is his uncle. And I don't mean to cast aspersions, and I don't mean for this to sound disparaging or derogatory or anything of the sort. But if I say to you, Jordan Seaton wanted to be at LSU and LSU wanted Jordan Seaton, that shouldn't come as some great surprise. Again, after spending a day at State, a day at Miami, coming to Baton Rouge with the intention on Monday of being in Eugene and spending a full 48 hours in Baton Rouge and never going to Eugene, there's some circumstantial evidence there that suggests to you what Jordan Seaton's thinking. He liked LSU a lot, and he wanted to be at LSU, and LSU wanted him. And as I was told, they were able to eliminate a lot of those financial barriers and hurdles. I think the issue is, I don't think, what I know and what I've been told is the holdup is Jordan Seaton's uncle, who's the one who has been managing this recruitment. And Seaton was supposed to be in Baton Rouge on Sunday and then going to Eugene Monday. And as it was explained to me, Seaton wanted to stay in Baton Rouge. His uncle wanted him on Monday to make that visit to Eugene, which never happened. In some instances, these types of recruitments and circumstances can be about control. And I think that's what we're looking at right now, is a situation where there's a gentleman who feels like he wants some say over what his nephew is going to do, and he's kind of losing control. And so that means for this staff, the impetus is gain or regain their trust, both Seaton and Seaton's uncle. It's even more complicated now because that spring semester deadline is passed. Seaton does not have a landing spot yet. Presumably, any school that wanted him 48 hours ago would still take him now. But does that preclude him from participating in spring football? That answer I don't have. They made an exception for Princewill Umanmielen. Might they do the same for Jordan Seaton? I would think so. I would hope so. But I don't have that answer hard and fast. What I do know is that Seaton left Baton Rouge on Tuesday morning, flew to Atlanta. Lane Kiffin went and visited him Tuesday night in Atlanta, as did Dan Lanning in Oregon. And we're still waiting on an answer from Seaton as to what his landing spot for the 2026 season will be. And if and when we know that, we'll certainly pass it along to you. But when you look at what LSU has done in this transfer portal class, even if they don't land Jordan Seaton, 41 additions, the number one transfer portal class in the country, such an overwhelming lead as the number one transfer portal class in the country. 24/7 gives LSU a grade of 81.06. Ole Miss has the second highest graded class at 63.93. Again, LSU's at an 81. Ole Miss is at a 63. It's remarkable. And you can even look at the total number of commits. LSU's got 39. But then look at a school like Penn State, which is fifth. 36 commits. Oklahoma State, which is sixth with 54 commits. Their rating is 52. LSU's 30 points higher in the ratings than those programs with even more commitments than LSU has, which tells you not only the quality, but the quality of the quantity for this LSU transfer portal class is absolutely outstanding. You have landed a guy like Princewill Umanmielen, day one starter. Jordan Ross, a very likely starter. Ty Benefield at safety, a starter. TJ Dottery, the leading returning tackler in the SEC, a starter. You look offensively, Sam Levitt's going to be your quarterback. Leo Ba is going to be one of your starting offensive linemen. Very likely Jordan Tompkins from Baylor is going to be a starting offensive lineman. A guy like Jace Brown from Kansas State, the number 3 receiver in the transfer portal, very likely going to be one of your starters. You didn't just add bodies. You added experienced, quality, day one, plug-and-play starters, and a tremendous amount of depth. Can you land one more? Tigers are at 41 portal additions. If they're done now, it'll be the most epic portal addition in the portal era. And my goodness, if they're able to add Jordan Seaton, it would be something unlike we have ever seen and may never see again. So stay tuned. As we have updates, we'll share them with you right here on Locked on LSU. So subscribe on podcasts and YouTube and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day.